Good evening. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education on Monday, August 23rd. And if you'd please join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Dr. Gibson, before we get to your presentation, I just want to say on behalf of the board, happy first day of school to everyone. Thank you to the bus drivers for contacting all of their riders ahead of time to let them know what time they'd be there, and to principals making calls over the weekend, reassuring families that things are going to go smoothly, and staff handing out high school schedules, last week and over the weekend. Guidance counselors at the high school, I don't know if you've ever seen high school first day, but kids not having their schedules, and the guidance counselors don't get their breakfast until 2:30 in the afternoon. So it's crazy, but they're there for the kids, so that's important. And then teachers just being ready to welcome those kids back to school today. I mean, everybody was just so excited to be back in the classroom. And just everyone for making, from a parent's perspective, seems so seamless that, the bus comes and picks up your child or you drop your child off and everything works so smoothly, but there's a lot of working parts behind that smoothness that make it happen. So just thank you to everybody that made that happen today.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I was at 8 separate schools today, so thank you for joining me. It was lovely to see. There were some excited kids jumping out of cars. So the first thing that we have on the agenda today, we had approached the board. This is, I think, the third presentation that we've done in this series to talk about recruitment and retention. We've given you some statistics. We've talked to you about what we've heard from staff and the options. We put out a huge survey, pushed. We came back to give you the results of that survey, get some feedback from you about which of these things you most want us to pursue in terms of budget and in terms of policy, and what ones we might be able to implement more immediately. So really, recruitment and retention at the end of the day, I do not have to tell you how difficult it is to recruit and retain staff right now. You can get a $500 bonus for, waiting tables at Ruby Tuesdays, for heaven's sakes. Fairfax is now offering $2,000 signing bonuses for bus drivers. It has become an incredibly competitive place. You guys have probably seen the news. They're actually paying parents to drive their kids back and forth to school now because they cannot find bus drivers. So it's really important to us. These people that you talk about working so hard, they do. They make an incredible amount of sacrifices, and so we're very blessed to get such great folks, and we're trying to find ways to honor and support them with what we have. So next slide. So first of all, who we received responses from? We received responses from about half of the staff. Most of those professional staff, about a third of them school service personnel, and 4% building administrators. That is fairly in line with their representation in our population. School service personnel are a bit more than that. They're a little underrepresented here, but they still came in strong numbers so that their voice was heard in this process. Next slide. So when we sat down and asked the folks, we had categories: compensation, engagement, and benefits. And for each one of those categories, we asked them to rank what they considered the most important. Kind of what was surprising is that how close they were. We thought there might be some significant differences between those. Number one, understandably, was compensation, but interestingly enough, engagement was right behind it, about 2 percentage points. People want to feel like the work that they do is meaningful and that they matter, that they're respected, and that they're given autonomy in their jobs, and that they're given the chance to change things and make them better, which really is something that doesn't necessarily cost money. It just costs time and effort. Benefits surprisingly came in a little bit lower. When we dig a little bit more into the results, I think a piece of that is different people want different benefits depending on where they're at in their lives. So some folks ranked those a little bit lower because if you get more money, you can spend it on anything. If you don't have children, then a child care credit isn't really going to do you a whole lot of good. So we think that's part of why the compensation, engagement, and benefits came in where they did. Okay, next slide, sir. Thank you, sir. So we sat down and went through each one of those categories, and then within those categories we also ranked them so that we could drill down as much as possible. Not surprisingly, the number one across the board is we need a salary increase just to stay anywhere close to competitive with the folks around you. The creation of higher level positions within job classifications. What this really is talking about is folks are saying, I shouldn't have to leave my job as a bus driver, if I love being a bus driver, to make more money. Don't force me into a different job to make more money. Don't force me out of the classroom to make more money. Create within my job classification a ladder so that I can keep doing what I love, but as I get better, I am compensated better. That comes with a few complications with service personnel, a few more than with professional, but we have some ideas about how to do that. Internal badging and credentialing, that really is about, instead of taking a semester-long college course or having to take 2 years and get a degree, it's about, hey, take this quick 2-4 week course, test out, show us that you know it, and then instantly, hey, here's a $100 a year or a $50 a month because you have this badge. You've learned how to do this thing, and it's tied to very specific skills we want from people, so they get them, and then we incrementally incentivize them. People liked that a lot. And like anything else, you want to be good at your job. Who doesn't want to be a master teacher or a master coach? You get compensated more because you took more responsibility, right? You learned more. Loyalty payment, that's all about if you stay here and you don't leave, there needs to be some loyalty both ways, right? A payment based on years of service. Now, our levy checks are, at least one of them, is based on the same concept. The levy check gets larger depending on how many years that you've been here in Jefferson County Schools. And the service personnel career ladder. Once again, just like the creation of higher level positions, it is for service personnel a way for them to gain additional education and certifications and move into higher paying positions. Our service personnel really are the backbone of the school system, and oftentimes they are so limited in what their salary scales can be that we really have got to find ways to convert those positions to higher paying jobs so those folks can support their families. A lot of times they're working for benefits. So, okay, next slide. Number 2 in engagement. One of the things that, the number one thing in engagement that folks ask for, and this is really about time, is staff development autonomy. This year, what we did outside of policy and procedure and learning how to operate Canvas, because that's where you have to put your grades in, everything else was staff choice. Ms. Tanya Dallas Lewis did an exemplary job this year putting together a staff dev calendar that was, you have to get in your hours, but you choose. Pick any of these that you want. We had most of them online. There has been some request for us to make all of the staff dev by choice, meaning we take these staff dev days and we can track you watching the staff development online, you quizzing at the end of it. We know that you've done it. Why not give you the flexibility to do it in any location instead of sitting in a room at a school? And folks really liked being able to pursue what meant a lot to them, understandably. Service personnel student allocation. Again, this was very popular and understandably so. Right now, we give teachers an allocation per pupil to spend on supplies and incentives and projects. We do not do that, and actually I polled some school systems, and I can't find any other systems who do the same thing for service personnel. Those classroom aides go in and they do projects with kids. They pay for stuff out of their own pocket. The bus drivers, I've seen them, they have these little boxes of incentives that they hand out to kids. And, you know, they need to be compensated for that, quite frankly, even more so than the teachers, for heaven's sakes. So that was a very popular idea. And then engagement and social emotional funding. Really, this was about providing schools with money and support for them to support staff. Places where staff can go and decompress and can deal with they're dealing with a lot of mental health issues from kids. And as you know, you're in there and you're taking a lot of frustration and anger and fright and being overwhelmed, and teachers absorb all that and they're calm and I've got you. And sooner or later, you need to be able to step back and have a place that's safe for you to be able to deal with that too. So also a very popular idea. Next slide. And finally, benefits. Interestingly enough, you'll see these did not get huge numbers, but of those, tuition reimbursement was certainly one. We pay for degrees. We have not paid for classes in the last several years because there has not been money from the state for tuition reimbursement, but we're an educational organization. You should support people learning and support tuition. Expanded service scholarship program. Right now we've had 13 service personnel who've gone through and gotten associate's degrees from the scholarship that we've established, and we'd like to be able to expand that so that we can have an even larger number of folks, because there's an annual stipend that goes with that as well. And it also is a career ladder, because with an associate's degree and a certification, those positions can become professional one positions, which also is a much more viable salary source for them to be able to support a family. Attendance incentive match for service. And again, you're hearing a lot about service, but they're also the folks that are the least well compensated that we feel like really need to be addressed. Right now, the state provides an attendance incentive, but only for professionals. It does not provide it for service. And one of our suggestions was to match that where locally we provide it for service. A relocation bonus. We heard some about this, and that was simply a monetary bonus up front to say, help you come in and stay here. If you're a teacher, no matter how long you've been a teacher, if you relocate from outside of the county into the county to become a taxpayer here, we should help you relocate because the cost of living in Jefferson is so high. Followed by child care provision and a family first day. Next slide. So we got 215 comments, and we're putting those into a spreadsheet to be able to send to you for additional review. These were some of the things that came up very frequently. A lot of folks asking for training and support in special education. Very high need students, very complex care behaviorally, and they don't always feel like we're preparing them as well as we could. Trauma-informed care, mental health, having additional recognitions for the service personnel. A lot of talk about flex time. You know, we can only be so flexible with kids in the classroom. More support and mentoring for new staff, smaller class sizes. We did get a couple who said, hey, if I'm on my spouse's benefits and I don't use your benefits, can you pay me for that? Next slide. Some more thing, everybody really wants time, duty-free lunches, longer planning, more paid days for prep. I will say, when I first came here, one of the shocking things for me was that we paid teachers for 3 days to get ready, do every bit of training that we have and get ready for kids. I have never been in a system in my life where it was less than a week to 10 days. Just because there is so much to get ready for kids and to prepare, and so much staff development to deliver. So it's no wonder that our folks feel overwhelmed. Removal of paperwork requirements. We started that last year during COVID. I meet with the faculty senate regularly, and one of the things that they told me early on was the lesson planning was killing them in a virtual environment. And so I spoke with the principals, and then we said no lesson plans. You don't teach kids, keep track of your assignments, but you don't have to do these complex lesson plans. And that was a very popular decision. I think teachers still taught very well without having to do a lot of extra paperwork. Converting all leave to paid time off. Again, in other places, whether your leave is for sick leave or leave without cause or vacation, if you got leave, you got leave. Use it for what you want. What does it, and their point, what does it matter? If I have the leave, I have the leave. Next slide. So permanent subs in all the buildings, more visibility, although some people said, hey, come out and see me more, and some people said, hey, come out and see me less. So never going to make everybody happy. But a lot talking about autonomy, rating administrators by their staff for feedback on their performance so that administrators can hear a little bit more about how we're supporting teachers. Next slide. Better medical benefits, more incentives and pay for more experienced teachers. Some of the teachers felt like, hey, you're chasing new teachers because we don't have enough. What about those of us who've been here for 25 years who really need to be honored and paid for our time? Some folks saying returning the COVID leave so that if you're quarantined that you don't have to use your personal leave. The board did that last year. That expired. You extended beyond what the federal government did. They did just first semester, we did second semester. And again, additional time in their schedule. They just always feel like there's never enough time to get everything done that they want. Next slide. So, in terms of priorities, when we took every single one of the results in the survey and all of the comments, these were the consistent themes across these. Options for pay increases, either across the board or targeted. Pay increases due to the size of our staff are interesting. For every $1,000 pay raise that you give the entire staff, it's around $1.5 million. It just between pay and benefits, the economies of scale with as many people as we have. Now, targeted, you can also, the state did that if you'll recall. They did 3-step increases for math and special education because they were targeting those. Autonomy increases, giving teachers and service personnel a lot more latitude in their work schedule, work performed. I will tell you one of the reasons we were able to pull off summer school this year is because when we sat down with teachers, we said, what can you give me? You can do Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, I got you. Can you do Tuesday, Friday? I got you. And we were incredibly flexible. We just had to put in those days. And it helped us with teachers who said, I can do the first 2 weeks, but not the last 4. So we were really trying to get some flexibility, and it helped us get more staff and more engaged staff because we were meeting their families' needs. More extensive support system, mental health, more time for the work that we're asking them to do. Revamping the service personnel compensation and support. This we are looking at legislatively what the restrictions might be. You know that every fall we go out to our legislators and say, this is the help that we need from you. Some of it may be, yes, keep these protections, but yes, give us some flexibility to be able to help folks advance, right? And last but certainly not least, create a more consistent, permanent, continuous feedback structure. Right now, a lot of our feedback structure is hierarchy dependent. It's, you talk to these people who talk to these people who talk to these people, and then these people talk to these people who talk to these people, and it rarely is clean back and forth. So we're looking at some different structures. We already have a faculty senate process, and I meet with faculty senate regularly, meet with the principals regularly. We're looking at creating a service personnel organization with reps from all of those that I would meet with monthly, just like the faculty senate, trying to get more clear communication back and forth between folks so that everybody's on the same page. Okay, next slide. So right now what we're trying to do is get some feedback from the board, or there's any of these that you want to see fast-tracked more than others? Are these any of these that you don't want us chasing that rabbit? And we will pull some staff together that are the most affected by these and come up with a set of action items, attach funding, staffing requirements, legislative policy requirements to them, and then bring them back to the board. Okay, next slide. Which would be the last one. So, sorry, I tried to go through that pretty fast.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Questions or comments from the board?
I have several. So I'm looking at this list with the consent agenda of all these long-term subs, and I'm contacted often people that have been in the system for several years, hired as a long-term sub. They can't get a regular permanent job. Some people do get hired permanently, and there's no rhyme or reason, because some of these people that get hired on aren't certified. Some of these people that don't get hired on are certified, but maybe they don't have the specific, yet I can give you names, if that's what you're looking at me for.
I'm just looking up.
Okay, so, and then there's people that are close to certification. They've taken, 20 out of 24 credits, and nothing's happening, and they're still not getting hired. So I think something could be done for these people that keep getting turned away from employment because they're not specifically certified yet, or at least be more transparent in, the guidelines, because it's not consistent. I know there's math teachers, and then you talk about treating people with respect. This is very frustrating for me, because I brought that up, and then the way that these math teachers at Washington was handled, really, they resented it, and we lost 3 math teachers at Washington High School, plus the math special ed teachers so far. And I suppose if they found other jobs, they would leave. Yet there are long-term subs in there who are partially certified. I know one who was at Jefferson and now is at Washington. So that's one thing that could be helpful. Of course, salary increases, and of course that's expensive, but I don't know how that could be accomplished. So you said that, the prep days, I've never been in a school system where teachers didn't get 2 planning periods. The teachers in West Virginia, or at least in Jefferson County, they have a long work day, whereas other areas in Virginia and Maryland, they have 2 planning periods a day. Some of that is accomplished by block scheduling, where students get, there's more learning, but the teachers get more time. I think it's a good idea to convert the leave to paid, the paid time off. The issue with the step-ups for service personnel, I asked about that in January or December, and you were going to give a presentation on it, but you didn't. So I am all for some sort of clear system that is transparent, where service personnel can, know where they stand and know what they have to do to move up the financial ladder. It's just frustrating for me, because in February 2018, when teachers were out there striking, I came in here, I stood over there, and I begged the board not to agree to the proposal of, so what happened was you presented a proposal of giving people outside of the education system years of experience. And I explained to the board what would happen if you did that. And so what happens is, you bump the seniority of your employees that you have. So you bring in somebody with no experience, somebody's a dog groomer, they come in, they've been doing it for 25 years, you give them a position as Human Resources Director. You give them 25 years, you've bumped the employees that you have, but you also remove that benefit that teachers have. So it used to be a benefit. If I was going to choose between two schools, one that allowed me to work my way up and, you know, move up to the board office, that would be more attractive, because if you get, you know, you feel like you want a different position, you can move. So that, so I think that really thinking about some of the policies and the way that they impact employees is serious. And instead of, I mean, I don't know what else to say, but the truth is, instead of just agreeing to things that come through, to really think about the impact. And maybe you all do, but I'm clearly frustrated because, like I said, I've been talking about some of this stuff, and it seems like it doesn't go anywhere. I don't mean to be sounding negative, but I'm really upset that we lost the math teachers. I mean, that's pretty serious, because we're gonna have people in there, hopefully they know some math, but then the teachers that are there, they're gonna have to make up for the loss of the other math teachers. And math is something you just can't pick up. You can't, so you can learn to pick up the skills for an elementary teacher, or to teach maybe middle school math, but you know, to teach calculus or trigonometry, I mean, even experienced math teachers, if you don't use that, you forget about it. So I'm all for really putting our employees first and making them a top priority. There shouldn't be, it shouldn't, I'm going to stop because I think it's going to get into something else, but from my perspective, what I see when teachers complain, they are not given an easy way of it, you know, and that's another issue. There's got to be a clear system for when employees have a complaint or an issue, and I think I brought this up before, where they feel safe and not this anonymous, you can say something online. I mean, there needs to be a whole culture of feeling respected and knowing that you can report an issue and it'll be resolved, and not that, well, you know what, you got hurt on the job, we're coming after you, you're getting a bad evaluation. That's the message that employees have and had, and so anyway, I think a lot of these ideas are wonderful.
Just talking about the math teachers at Washington High School, I mean, I know a little bit there because of the fact that my kids have had them, and that comes down to a state issue of lack of locality pay, because those teachers were able to drive across the state line and they're making over $30,000 a year more. I mean, that's what it came down to. $30,000 a year plus per year to drive across the state line.
Well, you know what, teachers do not get into the field for money, but if they are pushed out, and they warned this board, the board was warned at graduation that they are upset, they feel that they are not respected, and they are therefore, and they're upset about board policies, and therefore they're going to apply outside.
And ma'am, just to interrupt you for 1 second, they did not warn the board, because we never as a board had a conversation with them. So I'm not sure if you had a one-off conversation with them, but you can't qualify it as warning the board, please.
Okay, so 2 board members were told about it, and Dr. Gibson Learn was informed about it, and the result was a hostile letter to them, and it just made it worse. So maybe the rest of you didn't know, but that's what happened.
And
Wow.
certainly, Dr. Joy, I always respect the fact that you have your own lens on things, and that lens is often informed by your previous experiences and by the people that you speak with and who seek you out. I am not going to be disingenuous and say that there aren't people who are unhappy. We have 1,200 employees and almost 9,000 kids and their parents. We will never make anyone happy. What I think is both disingenuous and unfair to the staff here is to make sweeping negative statements about entire groups of people, about individuals. And again, I understand I am not going to say that there's any perfection on this side of the veil, but I think that there are a lot of incredibly caring, dedicated people, and their lives are complicated and they are not always linear or straightforward. But I do think that we have a lot of people here who are very caring, that support one another, that look out for one another, and it would be great if that could be acknowledged.
And like I said, they don't get into the field for money. They're here because they care and they give everything. Many teachers and, employees grew up here, and you have to see it's serious that when they're leaving, and if they wanted money, they would have left previously. But they were very explicit that it's because of board policies and they don't feel respected. And, for all last year, I send emails, I'm getting these complaints from another school, Shepherdstown Middle School, where there was a lot of teachers were unhappy, they're gonna leave, and sure enough, I think 15 left. They went, some of them were just, laterally. They didn't go out of the county, they went where they could get a job. So they transferred to schools within the county. So that's, not for more money. Other people that are certified in positions that have applied, I don't know, the system principal job at Shepherdstown, I think there were employees.
So I would certainly say if at some point, if we're gonna start talking about specific positions, specific individuals, principals who you are conveying, you're casting aspersions on their leadership and they're not here to defend
No, I was
themselves or
saying they were
having those
applying for a
discussions.
job. I didn't say anybody wasn't doing their job. These people applied for jobs and they're still sitting there. So this idea of hiring from within, you have to take it seriously. It has to be across the board. There has to be clear policies. The problem that we have here is the good old boy system where it's may. Everything is may. It applies to this person today, but you know what? I know your mother and she's good people, so that's the impression.
You know what,
that it is.
actually, if you are going to convey that you believe somehow this system is in any way, shape, or form not following to the T every single legal and legislative imperative for hiring, then I suggest we go into an executive session where our attorney can give you some accurate information, ma'am.
I'm not referring to just the employment, I'm referring to just the way that parents are treated, just like this attendance policy that's coming up today, the May, we've taken out all accountability, and so you've got to pick and choose. Well, if I think this person needs to, go to court, and I think this one we need to go look at, at some point you have
Madam
to
President,
make
can
clear
I
policies.
suggest that we ask for an executive session for Dr. Joy to share what she needs to share, obviously about some specific people and some specific schools, about some specific things.
I don't have any specific, it's
Is there
just
a
in
motion to go
general.
into executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Is there a second?
You need a second? Is that what you're waiting for?
Yes, sir.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Cable. All in favor of going into executive session for a moment?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right. We're going to be going into executive session for a few minutes, so we're going to ask you to please wait in the hallway. Okay, we're going back into open session now. Ms. Ogden, did you have a motion to go back into open?
Yes, ma'am. So moved.
Mr. Osborne?
Second.
All in favor of going back into open session?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Alright, and just a reminder, if everyone would please wear their masks in here, we would appreciate it. Thank you. Alright. Thank you for your patience while we discuss some personnel issues here. Did any board members have any other comments or questions for Dr. Gibson on the recruitment and retention survey results?
I guess, when do you feel like you will be enacting some of these things? And will you bring it back to us, or when would you bring it back, your plan?
Yes, ma'am. We, right now, part of this was to get feedback from the board. Thank you very much. We will go back and in priority order, we'll pull the individuals. We'll have a group of service staff and a group of professionals for these. And then go through each one, price those out, have any policy changes. I would suspect 2 weeks might be close, but the first meeting in October, certainly at the latest. There may be some ones that we could enact more immediately, such as the flexibility on staff development for the remaining staff development days for the rest of the year. We could bring those back at the end of September and then do the next round in October as they require more work. Okay?
Okay. Thank you very much for taking the time to do that for the, what was it, 49% of the staff that replied?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask a question as well, Dr. Gibson? Do you think it would be beneficial for, I mean, the benefits seem to be the most lacking as far as the choices, right? It would, from what I'm looking at, seem as though the top three under compensation are almost just as valuable as the highest one for benefits.
Yes,
Right.
ma'am, and again, I would say the issue with the benefits is simply benefits are typically narrowed to one group. If
Right.
tuition reimbursement, if you're not planning on taking another class, that's not very meaningful to you. If you have young children, child care benefit is, if your children are grown, that's not meaningful to you. So I think at the end of the day, the across the board was compensation so that they could then decide what mattered most to them. Benefits, I think, gets very splintered into specific groups who that benefit applies to and not to others.
I mean, to me, I would say, like, under benefits, just personally, the attendance incentive to match service, because that's a fair and equitable issue for me, would be an important thing, and a family first day, because it could be used for everyone, whether it was a parent or a child, or, you know, a spouse, a significant other, whatever you have. Those would be two that would be, like, from that I think it would be important to put dollar values on. And this is just, anybody else can jump in. The staff development autonomy, I think the engagement thing, all three of those things are important, and there's not necessarily a cost associated that is, you know, an astronomical cost, if you will. But it would be interesting, I think, to see the pieces on all of that, and then at least the top three of the compensation. I mean, really, all five of those are good, but, and then I think once you get more details, to go back onto the staff and then ask the staff to rate those if we have to choose between, you know, this, or this, because of, you know, however much funding we can secure with that. That's when I feel like that's gonna be helpful, because they're gonna have an actual, this is what we would do, and be able to rate those and give us some more feedback on what would be beneficial to add or not take away. That's my thought.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, next up is Deputy Superintendent of Operations update. Ms. White.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm going to start this evening with my update with the bond projects. We're concluding our summer bond projects, and I'm happy to say that they're on schedule with substantial completion of most of our projects. The Wildwood Middle School athletic fields are finished. The students are practicing on those, And the final touch is the bleachers, which are currently being installed. The Jefferson High School turf field, the turf is actually being sown. There was a lot of design work to that. They have added many additional staff. The staff from our vendor are working 65 hours a week plus to get the turf field ready for this Friday. And we anticipate it is on track to be done on Friday. We're also putting the infill in, which is the last step to completing the field. So good weather pending, which it looks like we'll have that done. There is a soccer game on Thursday that is being moved to Shepherd University. I know that Mr. Caton and Mrs. Group have worked well together in order to make that happen for the first soccer game. Our Ranson HVAC units, we had 2 of those in the bond call, and they've arrived and they're installed. And the Wright Denny Intermediate and Blue Ridge Elementary roof are completed. We had a Charlestown Middle School track project. We did mill up the asphalt, and we have put new asphalt down, and the striping is to be completed this week. And we've received more bottle fill stations, which maintenance will be installing throughout our school over the next several weeks. In child nutrition, I just would like to remind folks that meals are free for students, for all students again this year. And Mr. Bites is busy with a new grant that he received for a micro orchard at Charlestown Middle School, and he's looking forward to beginning that project soon. In transportation, they worked very hard, the office staff, in communicating with parents, communicating with schools, and assigning all students to buses. They were excited about the return of the drivers, and once drivers did return, as Kathy said earlier, they were able to call all their students about drop-off, pick-up times. So that went very well. They had a smooth opening today. I was at 7 schools, and all the kids got off the buses very cheerfully. The drivers were excited to be back, and we had a great first day back. Our operations directors in general have been busy providing staff development to our cooks, custodians, bus drivers, transportation aides, attendance clerks, secretaries, teachers, and administrators during the last 2 weeks. And I want to personally thank them for the huge lift. It took a lot of their time, and they provided quality staff development to our staff. I was able to stop by and participate and view many of the trainings and watch our talented coordinators and directors at work. So it was a pleasure to welcome the staff and the students back today. In technology, I'm going to highlight, we have a couple of our staff here, Devin Pearl for attendance, and then Jen Rowan, the technology director. And so I'm going to have a little guest speaker. Jen's going to give you a Canvas update, because I know many parents are curious about what the next steps are for them to log on to our learning management system and get familiarized with it. So Jen is going to briefly describe where we are, what steps we've taken, and then how this is going to roll out to the parents after Labor Day. So Jen, would you speak briefly to that?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, it's nice to see everybody in 3D. I always get really excited and pumped up because living in Zoom, the world is a little different. And it's just always good to be able to meet in person. Today I'm going to give you an update on where we are with our learning management system. Last year, just as a review, we had a stakeholder group that took a look at some feedback that came back from our parents, students, teachers, principals, the central office, and with that group in programmatic levels, we discussed what do we want in a learning management system that's going to allow for things to come together a little bit more and streamline our communication and where our classes are held and where our grades are held. After we got together with that stakeholder group, we got together with another stakeholder group after we put out the RFP, and we had 3 vendors respond. Canvas was the winner because it did match our very high expectations of what we wanted in a learning management system. So throughout the summer, we have been preparing. This June, we took a group of around 87 to 100 people to learn Canvas from the Canvas instructors, and we did that virtually for a 4-day boot camp. Those people were the coaches, some administrators who wanted to be involved, and teachers who were selected to be part of the professional development experience. They are then called Canvas ambassadors. So the idea was that we're going to build capacity. We build capacity in our coaches, but we also want to build capacity with teachers next door to each other, so they can have some person to rely on that's right next door. So we also developed this platform, or this way of levels of stepping up their understanding, the teacher's understanding. And the idea is that our students are going to learn at the same rate as our teachers. Right now, I think what I talked about before is that nobody likes to live in the construction phase. And right now we are in the construction phase. We're getting everything up and running. Our contract started the 1st. We had training for our administration during our administrative training, which was a lot of fun, and got them acquainted to the platform. And now our next phase is to help our parents get onboarded to the program. We did have some test runs with our JVA students. We had 4 orientations, 3 in person and 1 online, when they had their computer pickup for JVA, since they had to be ready day 1. And it went really well. So we wanted to expand that to everyone in Jefferson County and do a webinar on this Wednesday at 6 o'clock. I would like to invite all the parents of Jefferson County, all the board members who would like to learn from a parent's perspective, what are the most important things you want to take a look at? How are you going to see grades? As a student, what are you going to look at that's going to say, where's my to-do? And how can I see all of my things at the same time? So we'll give you some tips and tricks. It's going to be probably around 45 minutes with a question and answer session. So please come in, log in, and let me know if you have questions. To get there, go to our website, jcswv.org. On the right-hand side, it's a Canvas login button. Click on that area, and you will see right in the middle the link to log into the webinar.
And that's Wednesday, you said at 6?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Thank you, Jen.
Hi, Dr. Joy.
All students get the Chromebooks, correct?
That is correct. So we have decided that our in-person students, we're focused on student safety and getting them back into the routine. We know that our first grade students, some of them have never stepped into a building before. So getting them back into the routine is super important. We don't want that focus to be on the technology. So our focus on getting technology out and to ready our staff is to make sure that our computers are going to be out after Labor Day. That's our target goal.
So to elementary, to all ages. So my question is about there was the meeting we had about the McCormick grant, and somebody wanted extra money for the special ed students because they can't really use the Chromebooks. The severely handicapped students needed iPads or something especially designed for them. Has that been handled?
Every student has the opportunity to go through the special or the people services to obtain assistive technology. And there's a process that you do to gain that assistive technology.
So, but this was just for this particular teacher she needed for her class, it sounds like. And so I got the impression that unless they had it like written in their IEP, you weren't approving for them to have a device that they could use that would be more helpful to them.
We look at everything individually and to see if they already have those devices or need extra devices. We do try to honor that as much as possible. But seeing as that was last spring, I would have to go back to the specifics.
So is it possible for students to have, do you not give those to students at all unless it's in their IEP? That's what I'm trying to understand, how this particular class could get a couple extra iPads so that, you know, all the students could be working with them.
Yeah, I completely understand your perspective. In fact, I used to lead an assistive technology group over in Frederick County, Virginia. So I would encourage that teacher or the parents to go through the process in which we have in place here in Jefferson County through the pupil services.
So you're saying that they do need to have it in their IP then? They have to go through pupil services to get it on their,
Dr. Rowan, am I assuming that every student is gonna get a piece of technology in the county, including our special ed students?
Yes, ma'am.
And
Yes.
am I to assume that every student is gonna get a piece of technology that they can actually use, even if it's in a special education class?
Yes, and I'm not a special educator, so that's why it has to go through more of a specialized process to meet their needs more specifically. So I rely on our team and our collaborative effort to make sure that we are purchasing things with the public funds in the right way.
And I think I remember too with the grant, the teacher was asking to have extras in the classroom in case that student actually left theirs at home.
That is,
So,
yes, thank you for reminding me.
That's, I think, where the background there needed to be followed up with, to make sure that, you know, they had whatever extras they might need, but every student in the classroom we provided with exactly what they need, from what I
Yes.
understood.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ogden, I appreciate that reminder.
just like having extra textbooks in a class. I mean, that's just standard that a teacher would want extra iPads for kids that might forget, especially children with disabilities are really likely to forget.
And
Thank you.
circling back to Canvas, the parents will have a login and the students will have a login, is that correct?
Yes, so what's special about our Canvas login is that each parent or caregiver gets a special observer code. And that observer code is unique to the student, and you can have multiple students in your account, but you need at least one observer code to sign up. That code is good for one use only, so if you have mom, dad, grandma, and grandpa who all want a code, they need 4 codes, and it's good for 7 days. So we encourage you when you get your parent code, which is to come out along with our Chromebooks, when you get your parent code, please sign up as soon as possible.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the operations update for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White. And one thing that wasn't on your list was I saw the bleachers were being installed at
Yes.
Shepherdstown Middle School today.
Yes, ma'am.
So, excellent. Thank you.
You're
It'll be
welcome.
very exciting Friday night lights.
Very exciting, yes.
We had to mention lights, right?
Yes.
All
Okay,
right.
well, we gotta get there.
We'll get there.
Yes, we need.
All right, so is there a motion to approve the minutes for the regular board meeting held August 9th, 2021?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Any question or discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes from August 9th, 2021, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, citizens' comments. First up via Zoom, we have Monica Taylor, and then it's gonna be followed by Cindy Carter. Just a reminder that, all speakers are limited to 3 minutes. You're prohibited from making negative or derogatory comments, using a name or position by which an individual can be identified. Comments may not be threatening, profane, vulgar, abusive, or the speaker will be required to cease his or her comments. Speakers who deviate from the information provided on the speaker form will be called out of order by the chair and required to cease their comments. Public comment is not a question and answer period. It provides individuals with an opportunity to express their comments regarding the subject matter only. All comments shall be directed to the Jefferson County Board of Education. No person may address or question board members, Jefferson County school staff individually. And the board is not able to reply to comments during public comment. So first up is Monica Taylor. Good evening, Ms. Taylor. Whenever you're ready. Ms. Taylor, can you hear us?
Hi, yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Now we can. Whenever you're ready, you may start, please.
Thank you very much. All right, good evening. My name is Monica Taylor. I'm a first-generation American and Air Force veteran. I am coming tonight to say that I firmly oppose a mandatory mask mandate in our schools, and this is based on personal experience and facts which indicate children wearing masks are exposed to high levels of carbon dioxide when masked. I was prepared to share those studies, however, after hearing Dr. Reedy's comments on Friday from the health department, I really feel compelled to share our family's COVID experience with you. I'm a mom of 2 children, a middle schooler and an elementary schooler. Both of my children attended a mask-free private school in Northern Virginia last year. They did contract COVID. They did not, however, contract COVID from the school, even though there was a teacher in one of their classrooms who had COVID. They contracted COVID through when they had a sleepover at a friend's house in the local community. When my boys tested positive for COVID, they were legitimately scared, and I hugged them and tended them and cared for them like any mother would of any other sickness that they might have had. Fortunately, their symptoms were not very severe, and they recovered pretty quickly. 26 days and 4 COVID tests later, I personally never tested positive for COVID. I'm not trying to minimize the virus, but I am trying to just share our story. And after hearing Dr. Reedy's comments, I was actually really shocked. He did say that 99% of the time, children will recover fully. And in spite of that, the Jefferson County Health Department has recommended a mandatory mask mandate in our schools, not for our children's protection, but to protect the greater Jefferson population. Since when are we as adults outsourcing the responsibility of our personal health and well-being to our children? I found Dr. Reedy's comments shocking, and I'm also shocked that as a community, we're supporting the health department, strong-arming you as the Board of Education on this matter. It seems to me that the health department's position is that children be masked, or that they are going to enforce mandatory quarantines in our schools. As much as I was ready to really come down hard on you as a Board of Education for implementing this mandatory mask policy indoors, I do see that you are doing what you can to keep our kids in school, so I thank you for that. I disagree with the how, but I do agree with the why. Our children desperately need to be in schools. So for the families out there, if it makes sense for your personal situation to have your child wear an N95 mask for protection against viruses and other airborne illnesses, I think that, and of course the Board of Education would agree with this, I believe that they would be supported and encouraged to do so. However, whenever my children are asked to subject themselves to high levels of carbon dioxide on a daily basis for the benefit of the greater good, even when it has been documented that it is rare for children to pass COVID to adults, I think as a community, we need to take responsibility for our own health and not
Ms.
shift that
Taylor, I'm sorry,
responsibility
your
onto our children.
time is
Thank
up.
you.
Next up is Cindy Carter, followed by Valerie Arnold.
This is my first time here. Do you
Oh,
want me to
the
use
podium,
recording?
please, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just coming as a concerned mom. My husband and I were very disappointed, and my daughter. I have a daughter who's a junior at the high school, and she's hearing impaired. And she was very excited to go to school today, and came home very disappointed. The Friday, we were very disappointed in the decision about being masked. That's our main concern. Because of her being hearing impaired, she misses about, she tells me 25%, I believe it's about 50% of what people are talking, including her teachers. Today she told me that and I don't know if this is true, that the clear masks, I don't know what you call them, aren't allowed to be used. For her, that matters a lot because she's hearing impaired and she reads lips and she depends on seeing people's faces. And also that she wasn't allowed to use her locker for the second year in a row, which I really don't even see what the reasoning is, because they're sitting together in a cafeteria, but they can't put their books in a locker, which is another health issue because the books are very heavy, and she had surgery on her back, and that concerns me as a parent with her carrying a heavy backpack for later damage down the road. I don't understand why they can sit in the cafeteria or walk around and talk, but they can't, they have to wear a mask. I'm just very upset about that. And that's what I wanted to, voice my opinion about. I want to know when are they considering this to reevaluate this in a couple weeks? Or is this going to be an ongoing thing for years? Even though she's got 2 more years of school, I feel very, upset for the other children, because this could go on and on and on. At some point it has to cease. And when you're vaccinated, I think you should have a choice to wear a mask or not. And that's, that's only fair. That should be our individual right. And that's all I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Valerie Arnold, followed by Karen Buck.
So I'm Valerie Arnold. I'm a Jefferson County native of 47 years. I have been in healthcare for 31 years. I've served as an EMT paramedic in this county for 19 years. I'm a current nurse, 12 years, currently working in the nursing industry in Loudoun County, Virginia. I'm here to present some facts on COVID. I'm also a graduate of Jefferson High School. Have a child who graduated from here who's now serving in the military and studying to be a nurse. Have a nephew who is currently at Jefferson High School who plays football and is in fear of being exposed and quarantined because he will not be able to play sports for the season. This terrifies me and disgusts me to no end. This is emotional abuse. It's physical abuse. It's medical abuse. These masks are useless. Useless. Okay? The droplets this does not stop the droplet spread. So every time you are removing your mask, it's useless. Dr. Reedy took a Hippocratic oath that he is betraying. Do no harm. He's doing harm. Physically, committing crimes of humanity, treason for going against his oath. And you all are fear-mongering here. This virus is 98% recoverable. I've seen no pediatric patients with this virus. This is abuse of power right here. It's very sad. Kathy Skinner, I saw you intimidating me or trying to intimidate me with your visual expression. You don't intimidate me, and neither does anybody else in here, okay? You all have lied about the liberal indoctrination of the critical race theory. I called and asked if you were teaching it. You specifically said no. You are teaching it by doing a segregated math class over the summertime. That's pathetic and shameful for Jefferson County. Nobody supports that here. Every time that they're asking you to get tested with these swabs, read the packet. It contains ethyl oxide.
Thank you, ma'am.
That's a carcinogenic.
That's your time.
Okay?
Thank you.
That's why the CDC has removed them
Ma'am.
as emergency testing.
Ma'am.
They're dangerous. They are ineffective.
Excuse me, Ms. Arnold. Next up is Karen Buck.
My name is Karen Buck, and I'm coming here to talk to you today about freedom of choice wearing this ridiculous mask. Now, isn't that an oxymoron? Masking children and young people in school. The freedom to make decisions for your child has been taken away. The simple freedom of how to dress your child for school has been taken away by government officials with no accountability. The board is blaming the Board of Health. The Board of Health is said we're blaming the CDC. It goes around and round and round. There's no accountability, so this is like the perfect storm for you guys. You can really get away with anything now. Now, I'm a Vietnam combat vet widow. He had PSD, Agent Orange, shrapnel peppered through his body. He was on 14 different medications a day. He paid the price for freedom. My brothers and sister are all military or retired. Both of my parents were in the Navy. My Navy son pulled bodies out of the USS Cole in the year 2000 when it was bombed in the Yemeni harbor. He has lifelong injuries sustained on a chopper accident that was on the tarmac. As an American Legion auxiliary volunteer, I have talked more veterans off a ledge than I care to discuss with you. So I know a little bit about the cost of freedom, the price of freedom. Our freedoms are being taken away very slowly, little bit by little bit. You almost don't even notice it. The masking of our children and young people in school without scientific proof or evidence is just the latest freedom that you parents have given up. Now, if I have to stand on the side of the road with a sign, this is a small price to pay for freedom. If I have to humiliate myself in front of my community and my family, I will pay this price for freedom. If I have to be admonished by the NAACP in public, I will pay this price for freedom. But there's not much you can do that scares me. One thing that does scare me is a small group of government officials making bad decisions for many people with no accountability. That should scare the hell out of everybody. If it costs me everything that I am, if it costs me everything that I own, I will never stop fighting you people for basic God-given freedoms, like not wearing a mask. Many parents have decided to homeschool their kids this year. You can't blame them. And they've had a revelation. OMG, they don't need the Board of Education. How about that? They have learning groups, field trips, play groups, and no government COVID harassment. Parents, this is your time to stand up and speak up for your kids. The time is now. You must conquer your fear and speak up for your children. It's time.
All right, next up we have the consent agenda. Are there any changes or anything to the consent agenda?
Yes, ma'am. On the superintendent approvals, on line 17, Julie Perky had been previously approved a while back, and so that is a deletion from this board agenda. Thank you.
All right. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with the adjustment of deleting line 17 under superintendent approvals?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Any questions or discussion? All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, next up we have unfinished business. Request approval of the draft of the attendance policy.
Good evening. So I come before the board this evening to let you know that the draft attendance policy has concluded public comment with no public comments. So I would ask that you make a motion to accept the draft attendance policy as written.
And there were no public comments?
No, ma'am.
You buried it. You couldn't find it.
And these include the changes that the board made recommendations to, is that correct, from what I read?
No, ma'am.
No.
When we put it on public comment, it is put on public comment as is. And if you would like changes to it, then you can certainly make a motion this evening. That would include changes to it, to the language of it.
Time to talk.
Hang on 1 second.
I just wanna
So I make a motion that we accept the policy, as written,
All right,
so we can get it on the floor.
thank you, Ms. Ogden, thank you, Mr. Osborne. Okay, now discussion.
Yeah, when I checked, I think it was last Sunday, you couldn't access the survey.
So you do also have the ability this evening to put it back out on public comment.
Yeah,
You do not have to vote on
I
it.
think that there was confusion. Some people, I think, it sounds like some people couldn't find it, but I know when I checked, and I took a picture of it to show you that it wasn't working, so. But, I opposed putting it out to begin with because of all the issues that were, already stated, so. But I think it's only fair to the public that they get a chance to comment.
There was an issue with the system where you couldn't pull it up, that much I do know. So I'm not sure how long that went on for.
2 days.
2 days.
From Friday to Sunday. And on Monday it was corrected, but certainly we're not under a time frame if the board wishes to put it back out, and certainly would take any feedback, and it would be helpful even with board members if you have any feedback to give that to us in writing so that we can make policy recommendations.
Feedback for what, the policy as it is?
Yes, ma'am.
I believe, it was Miss Pearl and, yes, thank you. Last time was taking some notes on some.
She does have those
options
notes,
that we
yes,
had.
ma'am.
Okay, so, I think to add those types of changes for sure, can,
Well, Ms. Ogden, would you like to amend your motion
Yes.
to put it back out for 2 more weeks?
I think we need to vote on that motion, don't we, and vote it down, and then get another motion on the table.
We can do it
yeah,
that
we
way.
just do it that way.
I think we need to vote on the
Okay.
motions on the table.
All right, so we're gonna vote down this motion right now just to clean up the table here.
Sure.
All in favor of approving the draft attendance policy as presented? Opposed?
Aye.
All right. So would you like to make a new motion?
Yeah, I think we need to make a motion that we put this back out for public comment for 2 more weeks to the next meeting, and also that, we get the editorial changes that we asked for, before it gets put back out, and then we can add more to it if need be. Does that sound fair to everybody?
Editorial changes or?
All the different pieces that we talked about last time. So we can at least see it with those changes, and then next time we meet, we can look at those changes and see if we need more of those changes.
Absolutely, sure.
I just want to clarify that it's everybody's, I mean, because I was, the requiring students to attend high school for 4 years, you know, I didn't know if other people agreed with that.
That was one
That
of
was
the
one of the
sections
changes
we
we
said
talked
that
about.
we
Yeah, I
wanted
just
out
didn't
of
know
there.
if that was gonna, or if it was just your changes that you recommended, so.
No, it was,
No.
everybody's changes were
And,
written down. Is that correct, Ms. Pearl? Yes.
Yeah.
We have all of them.
Okay. So, Ms. Ogden, then is your motion to make the changes that the board recommended last time and put that out for public comment for 2 weeks?
Correct.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. All in favor of that plan, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Computer glitches, when they glitch, so,
Thanks for giving us more time.
all right. Then we have no other new business. Superintendent's comments?
No, ma'am, I'd simply like to reiterate, my appreciation to all of the parents, both parents who came out this evening to, speak their truth, which is appreciated. All the parents who brought their kids today, and the staff for a great opening day of school, so thank you.
And do we have any additional executive session this evening?
No, ma'am. My apologies. Yes, ma'am, apparently you're going, you have medical leave to consider an executive session. I apologize.
Okay, so is there a motion to go into executive session for personnel?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Mr. Osborne. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Joy. All in favor of going into executive session for personnel? Say aye. Opposed? All right, thank you.